"Do look there," she warned, but the rancher kept his gaze and did something that infuriated everyone. The wind swept across the dusty plains of Ardent Seven, carrying with it the faint scent of ionized soil and distant rain. The colony's settlement was small, a scattering of low, reinforced domes and wind-beaten shacks, but it had a life of its own. Smoke spiraled lazily from the communal kitchens, and the faint hum of machinery marked the rhythm of human persistence. Here on this remote, unforgiving planet, life had carved a stubborn foothold. Jed Harron, a rugged man with skin weathered by decades under twin suns, moved steadily across the pasture. His boots sank slightly into the soft, red dust with each step. His herd of genetically engineered livestock grazed cautiously, their metallic-tinted coats glinting in the pale light. Jed had spent a lifetime raising these creatures, and he knew every twitch, every flick of their ears, every subtle change in their behavior. But today, something was off. A strange light flickered on the horizon, a shimmer that didn't belong to the suns or the natural storms that sometimes danced across the sky. Jed squinted, narrowing his eyes against the brightness, and tried to reason it away. Perhaps it was just heat waves. Perhaps it was an electrical storm forming in the distance, but deep down something told him otherwise. "Jed," the shout made him turn sharply. "Doctor." Ilara Voss, a young scientist who had volunteered to study the planet's atmospheric anomalies, came running toward him. Her lab coat flapped behind her like a white flag against the dust and wind. She skidded to a stop, breathless. "You need to see this," she said, voice tight with urgency. "Don't look there, don't focus on the horizon." Jed raised an eyebrow. "Why, the sky's just sky. I've seen a dozen storms worse than this." Ilara's eyes were wide, flicking nervously between him and the strange shimmer. "No, Jed, it's not just a storm. I've been monitoring the readings for days. There's something there, something alive or at least not natural, if you stare too long." "Then what?" Jed asked, calm and unafraid. His voice carried the steady tone of someone who had faced worse than unknown lights. "You're scaring your herd and me for nothing." Ilara hesitated. Her hands clutched the straps of her bag, filled with instruments and data pads. "You don't understand. It can manipulate perception, make you see things that aren't real. It can make people do things they wouldn't normally do." Jed laughed softly, shaking his head. "I've been on this planet long enough to know a little fear doesn't help. Now tell me what you're seeing exactly." Ilara stepped closer, lowering her voice. "There's a ripple in the air like heat but alive. It moves, changes shape. And the readings, they show patterns almost like intelligence. It's studying us. I think it's testing us." Jed tilted his head, intrigued. Testing them. The thought stirred something deep inside him. Humans had survived on harsh planets, fought wars, survived hunger, disease, and betrayal. Tested before, sure, but tested by something unknown. That's just another day. "You're worried," he said with a grin, "because it's different. Well, everything out here is different. Look, I'll check it out, but I'm not panicking." Ilara's hand tightened on his shoulder. "Jed, please, you don't understand. Don't do what you usually do, don't approach it blindly. Some things out here, some things you stare at and it changes you. I'm telling you, don't look there." Jed chuckled, brushing a speck of dust from his coat. "I've stared down storms that could swallow this whole settlement and storms that could fry your fancy instruments in a heartbeat. If I look, it's not going to change who I am. Now, step back and watch." She bit her lip, torn between fear and respect. She had heard stories about Jed's stubbornness before. He had survived impossible situations with nothing but his wits, courage, and a stubborn refusal to run. Yet the flicker on the horizon made her stomach tighten. The shimmer pulsed. It wasn't like the auroras on their home planet, not like any storm they had catalogued. The light bent, twisted, forming vague shapes, shapes that seemed to resemble the silhouettes of massive creatures, hovering just beyond reach. The herd grew uneasy, their low murmurs filling the air like distant thunder. Jed, unfazed, took a few steps forward. Jed, stop! Alara's voice cracked with panic. I'm serious. Jed paused, looking back over his shoulder. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with unspoken fear. And yet there was something else there. A spark of human determination, a stubborn courage. He turned back to the horizon and focused on the shimmer. The light responded. It seemed to ripple faster as though acknowledging his gaze. The air shimmered around him, and for a moment the world felt unsteady. He stumbled slightly but caught himself. Alara gasped. It's reacting to you. Jed shrugged, brushing the dust from his hands. Good, let's see what it wants. The townspeople began to gather at a distance. Children pressed their faces against the protective dome windows, adults murmuring in fear. Rumors spread quickly, he's staring into madness, calling it forth. He's gone insane. He's provoking it. Jed ignored them. In his heart, he knew that survival didn't come from fear. It came from understanding, from courage, from the willingness to face the unknown. And if staring at this anomaly was the first step, then so be it. The shimmer began to take on more distinct shapes. Tentacle-like forms, long and glimmering, seemed to sweep through the air. The herd bolted, but Jed whistled, low and steady. Slowly they returned, trusting his calmness over their instinct. Alara's voice was trembling. Jed, why are you doing this? You could get everyone killed, Jed smiled faintly. Because someone has to. Fear doesn't solve problems. Courage does, even if it's stupid courage. The light shifted again, forming a dome of energy around a ridge near the pasture. Jed squinted. Something inside him told him this wasn't just a light show. It wasn't just an environmental anomaly. It was alive, watching and waiting. Then, with a grin that made Alara groan, he said, "Time to find out what happens when you don't run." Without hesitation, Jed began walking toward the ridge. Dust swirled at his boots, the wind tugging at his coat, the herd following cautiously behind. The townspeople shouted warnings, but he paid them no mind. Alara ran alongside him, trying to keep up. Jed, stop. We don't even know what it is. Jed didn't slow. Exactly, and that's why we can't run. Humans survive because we face the unknown, not hide from it, you'll see. As they climbed the final rise, the shimmer expanded, brighter, more intense, almost overwhelming the senses. For a moment, Jed felt a strange pull in his chest, like the light was probing his mind. But he steadied himself, grounding in what he knew, his hands, his feet, his herd, his determination. The alien energy seemed to pulse in response, a heartbeat in the air, and Jed raised his hand not in fear but in acknowledgement. He could feel it watching, analyzing, testing, and he smiled. Humanity had always faced the impossible, always survived. And he was ready to show that here, on this far-flung world, they could do it again. Alara fell silent beside him, torn between fear and admiration. Jed didn't glance back at the settlement, didn't heed the murmurs of panic. He was focused, unafraid, human to the bone, undaunted by the unknown. And for the first time, the shimmer seemed to shimmer with curiosity, almost like it had never met a human like him before. The ridge loomed ahead like a silent sentinel. Jedharan's boots crunched against the red dust, each step deliberate, steady, unwavering. The shimmer on the horizon pulsed in strange rhythms, bending the air around it like a living wave. Even from a distance, it seemed almost conscious, almost aware of him. Alara Voss kept pace beside him, her breaths coming in short, anxious bursts. She had tried to stop him back at the pasture, tried to make him see the danger, but Jed never faltered. And now, as the shimmer grew brighter and more insistent, she felt a shiver run down her spine. "This isn't just light," she whispered. "It's watching. I can feel it in my chest. Be careful." Jed smiled faintly, glancing at her. "Careful is not what humans do best. We don't hide, we don't wait, we act." Before Alara could respond, Jed stepped onto the top of the ridge. The shimmer was closer now, spreading like a liquid wall of color and energy. The light bent around him as if trying to understand his presence. The air vibrated, filling his ears with a low hum that was almost musical. "Jed," Alara's voice trembled. What are you doing?" Jed didn't answer. He reached into the pocket of his coat and pulled out a small, cylindrical device, an old human-built beacon designed decades ago for emergency signals. It had been stored in the colony's archive, almost forgotten. Few believed it would ever be useful, but Jed had an idea. Without hesitation, he activated it. A bright, steady pulse shot into the sky, cutting through the shimmer like a knife. The light flared, echoing in the valley below, and the herd scattered in sudden panic. "Jed, what are you doing?" Ilara cried, grabbing his arm. "Do you know what that could mean?" Jed held her gaze calmly. "I'm talking to it." "Ilara, step back," shouted one of the townspeople who had been observing from the settlement. Others followed, shouting warnings, shaking their heads and waving their arms. Some looked terrified, some furious. "He's going to get us all killed." Jed ignored them. The beacon pulsed again, and the shimmer seemed to react instantly. The energy twisted and expanded, forming shapes that defied logic, vague silhouettes that looked almost alive, like creatures in a dream. They moved with intelligence, circling Jed as if assessing him, testing him. Ilara pulled him back slightly. "Jed, this isn't just communication, it's dangerous. You could be provoking it, you could." "I know what I'm doing," Jed interrupted gently but firmly. "Humans survive because we face the impossible. We take risks when others flee. And sometimes we have to show strength even when it scares everyone else." The townspeople's shouts grew louder. "He's insane. Stop him. Do you want to die?" Jed lifted his hand, signaling for quiet. "Listen, it's not about fear, it's about understanding. This thing, whatever it is, it's smart. And it's curious. And curiosity is something humans know better than any other creature. We survive because we understand, because we adapt, because we don't run from the unknown." The shimmer pulsed again, more intensely, and for the first time, the ridge seemed to vibrate under Jed's feet. The light rippled across the sky, bending and folding in patterns that no human instrument could fully analyze. Jed's pulse quickened, not with fear but with excitement. This was the kind of challenge humanity thrived on, the kind that separated the cautious from the brave. Ilara's voice was small now, almost lost in the hum. "Jed, maybe you're right, but be careful, please." Jed nodded, a small grin tugging at his lips. "I always am." Then he did something that shocked everyone. He reached into his coat again, this time pulling out a small metal rod, another relic from humanity's past, a tool designed to emit a low-frequency signal. Without hesitation, he drove it into the ground, activating it. The air around him shimmered, and the energy from the horizon seemed to warp in response, forming shapes that were now unmistakably deliberate. Long, translucent arms reaching toward him, probing, testing. The townspeople gasped. Children pressed their faces against the dome windows, while adults shook their heads in disbelief. Some shouted warnings, some cursed, and some simply stared, frozen with fear. What is he doing?" one woman whispered. "He's calling it," another replied. "He's inviting it." Jed ignored them. He stood tall, arms at his sides, meeting the shimmering forms without flinching. The light pulsed faster, almost like a heartbeat, and then suddenly it paused. For the first time it seemed uncertain. It had not expected defiance. It had not expected courage. Ilara stepped closer, awe and fear mingling in her eyes. "Jed, you're incredible, but also terrifying." Jed chuckled softly. "Terrifying, maybe, but effective." The shimmer began to shift again, this time coalescing into a more solid shape, a floating structure like a ship, translucent but massive, hovering silently above the ridge. Its surface rippled like liquid glass, reflecting the red dust of the planet below. The town fell silent. Even the wind seemed to pause. The humans watching from the settlement murmured among themselves. Fear battled curiosity. Some shook their heads in anger. How could Jed be so reckless? How could he risk everything? And yet, there was no denying it. He was human to the core, bold, unyielding, unwilling to submit to fear. "Jed," Ilara whispered, barely audible, It's responding to you, Jed nodded. I know, that's the point, it's testing us or me, maybe both. And humans, we don't back down from tests. The floating structure emitted a sound, low and resonant, felt more than heard. The vibrations ran through Jed's chest, and yet he did not falter. He could feel the intelligence behind the light, the probing presence trying to understand him, gauge him. And he smiled. Humanity had faced impossible odds before. Humans had stared down extinction and survived. And now, on this distant world, they were proving it again. Suddenly, one of the townspeople shouted, breaking the tense silence. "Stop him! He's going to get us all killed." Jed turned his gaze toward them, calm and unwavering. "No, if you want to survive, you watch and learn. Fear is easy. Courage takes action. And sometimes action means defying everyone else's expectations." The shimmer pulsed once more, this time brighter than the suns above. The arms of light extended toward him, but instead of attacking, they moved slowly, deliberately. Jed could feel the scrutiny, the curiosity. It wasn't hostility. They were testing, studying, learning. And in that moment, Jed knew that his defiance, his courage, had done something remarkable. It had commanded respect. Alara's voice broke the silence. "Jed, maybe you've made it curious about us, about humans." Jed nodded slowly. "Exactly. It's not just about bravery. It's about showing who we are. Humans survive because we don't just face danger. We face it and stand tall." The townspeople were still shouting, still angry, still afraid. But for the first time, even they had to pause and look. Jed Heron, lone human against the unknown, had forced something entirely alien to acknowledge the audacity of humanity. And in that quiet, hovering moment, the ridge, the shimmer, the humans, and the red dust of Ardent Seven felt connected. Jed smiled faintly, raising his hand in a subtle salute to the unknown. "I don't know what comes next," he said softly to Alara, "but whatever it is, we'll handle it. Humans always do." Alara watched him, a mixture of awe and exasperation. "You really are impossible, Jed Heron." He grinned. "Maybe, but humans survive by being impossible." The shimmer shifted once more, like a ripple in water, as if acknowledging his words. Then, slowly, deliberately, it began to move, hovering toward the colony itself. Jed watched, unafraid, knowing that the next moments would define not just him, but every human who called Ardent Seven home. And in that certainty, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Because sometimes courage, the stubborn, unyielding courage of one human, was enough to change the course of everything. The shimmer above the ridge pulsed with a rhythm that seemed alive, like a heartbeat syncing with the planet itself. The massive, translucent form hovered silently, radiating energy that bent the red dust of Ardent Seven into ghostly patterns. Jed Heron stood on the ridge, his boots steady, his eyes unwavering, while the townspeople below whispered in fear and fascination. Alara Voss stepped closer to Jed, her scientific curiosity battling her fear. "Jed, it's coming down. Are you ready for this?" Jed tilted his head and smiled faintly. "Ready or not, Alara, we have no choice now. If it wants to know who we are, we'll show it." From the shimmer, shapes began to emerge, figures that seemed semi-solid, almost liquid in form. They moved with grace, and yet there was unmistakable intelligence behind every motion. The humans could feel their awareness, probing minds like a gentle wind brushing over a field of wheat. Alara's instruments beeped and whirred, registering energy readings far beyond anything the colony had ever seen. She swallowed hard. "Jed, these beings, they're thinking." "Really thinking?" Jed nodded, his gaze fixed on the forms. "Exactly, and thinking creatures respect courage. That's what we'll give them." The largest shape shifted, extending a translucent arm toward Jed. The light brushed against him, and for a moment he felt a wave of understanding. Not words, but emotions and images, impressions of curiosity, analysis, and caution. It was studying him, testing him, measuring human intent. Jed did not flinch. Instead, he reached into his coat and pulled out a simple metal tool, a handheld instrument used for soil and energy testing. He held it up without hesitation, a small gesture of acknowledgement of communication. The shimmer reacted, pulsing brightly. It was a slow, deliberate pulse, not threatening but inquisitive. The townspeople below gasped, whispering amongst themselves. Some shook their heads in fear, others stared awestruck. He's showing it we're not afraid," Alara whispered. Jed nodded. "Humans survive by facing the unknown. We don't run, we adapt, we understand, and we stand tall." One of the shimmering figures moved closer, hovering just a few meters above the ridge. Its form rippled, almost as if it were water, reflecting the suns and the red dust like a mirror. The figure extended a limb, or what humans perceived as a limb, and touched the instrument Jed held. Energy flowed into it, a pulse that conveyed recognition and interest. Alara stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Jed, it's acknowledging you. It understands what you're trying to communicate." Jed's grin widened. "Exactly, that's all it takes. Humans survive because we communicate, because we show courage, because we act when others hesitate." The shimmer rippled again, this time more broadly. Shapes began to form around it, rising from the ground like delicate, semi-transparent towers of light. Each tower moved with intention, scanning the humans, the livestock, and the colony itself. The energy radiated intelligence, curiosity, and a strange sense of patience. From the ridge, Jed could see the townspeople's reactions, fear, anger, and awe all mixed together. Some were shouting, demanding he stop, demanding he come back. Others were frozen in amazement. Children pressed their faces to the dome windows, captivated by the alien display. Jed raised his hand, signaling calm. "Quiet," he said. "Watch, learn. This is what makes humans humans." Alara shook her head in disbelief. "Jed, you're risking everything." Jed's eyes were steady, focused on the shimmer. "Risk is part of survival, fear is easy, courage takes action." The alien forms extended further, probing the surroundings. They did not attack. They did not retreat. They observed, learning. And then, slowly, one of them hovered closer to the ridge where Jed stood. It seemed to study him specifically, focusing on his movements, his posture, his calmness. Jed felt a strange connection, almost like an unspoken conversation. Images and feelings passed between them: curiosity, challenge, recognition. Jed could sense that these beings were testing humanity, assessing the courage, ingenuity, and resilience of one human as a representative of his species. The townspeople were shocked. Some shouted in fear, some in anger, but even the loudest voices could not drown out the silent exchange happening above the ridge. Jed had drawn something entirely alien into understanding human defiance. Then the shimmer pulsed brightly and a sound, low and resonant, filled the air. The vibration ran through the ground, through Jed's boots and into his chest. It was not threatening, but it demanded attention. Jed lifted his hand, holding it steady, and in return the shimmer pulsed again. Alara's voice was barely audible. "Jed, I think it's impressed. It recognizes courage." Jed nodded slowly. "Not just courage, Alara. Humanity doesn't survive by hiding. We survive by acting, by thinking, by refusing to submit to fear. And right now we're showing it." The shimmer began to move, forming shapes that resembled a bridge of light between the ridge and the colony below. It was an invitation, a test, a challenge. Jed could feel it in his chest, a message of curiosity and expectation. One of the townspeople, shaking with anger and fear, shouted, "Stop him! He's inviting them into the colony. Do you want everyone dead?" Jed did not answer. He turned to Alara. "Sometimes to survive, you have to defy fear. Sometimes you have to act when others hesitate. And sometimes that means taking responsibility for the unknown." Alara swallowed hard, nodding. She knew Jed was right. Fear was natural, but courage, that stubborn, unyielding courage, was what made humans extraordinary. She had studied humanity all her life, but seeing it in action, facing the unknown without flinching, it was something else entirely. The shimmer extended a form closer to Jed. He could sense its thoughts, not words but impressions, evaluation, curiosity, and caution. It was testing him, pushing boundaries, assessing not just bravery but intelligence and morality. Jed smiled faintly. Humanity had faced impossible odds before and they had always survived. Jed, Alara whispered. What now? Jed's gaze did not waver. Now we show them what humans are capable of. Not just fearlessness but resourcefulness, courage, and unity. We face this together. The alien energy pulsed once more. And then, to the astonishment of everyone watching, it split into multiple streams of light, extending toward the colony itself. The humans below froze, unsure whether to flee or watch. The livestock huddled together, sensing the change but not panicking because Jed's calm presence steadied them. Jed stepped forward, lifting his hand in a subtle salute to the unknown. "We're ready," he said softly. "Show us your test. Let us prove we're worthy." Alara placed a hand on his shoulder, awe and fear mingling in her eyes. "Jed, you really are impossible," Jed smiled. "And that's why humans survive." The shimmer moved closer to the colony, revealing its structure more clearly. It was a vessel, a floating construct of energy and intelligence, unlike anything humans had ever seen. Its surface rippled with patterns that suggested logic, design, and consciousness. The townspeople could see it now, and even the most fearful among them felt a sense of awe. The alien forms hovered silently, observing every detail of the colony, every movement of the humans and livestock. Jed knew they were testing more than just him. They were testing humanity as a whole. How would they react to danger, to the unknown, to uncertainty? And could humans work together, remain calm, and act with courage and ingenuity? Jed took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. "Alara, it's not just me, it's all of us. How we react now, it will define how they see us. And I intend to make them respect humanity." Alara nodded, her hands trembling. "Then let's show them. Let's prove what humans are capable of." The shimmer pulsed brighter, almost as if acknowledging their words. The aliens were curious, and curiosity could lead to understanding, even respect. Jed could feel it, an opportunity to demonstrate humanity's greatest strengths, courage, ingenuity, and unity in the face of the unknown. The townspeople, though still fearful, began to quiet. Jed's calm presence had a grounding effect. The livestock stopped moving nervously, and the wind seemed to still. All eyes were on the ridge, on Jed, on the shimmer. For the first time, humanity was being observed in its rawest form. Courage in action, fear faced and conquered, intelligence applied in moments of danger. And Jed Harron, standing tall against the unknown, was the embodiment of that spirit. The alien vessel hovered, silent and patient. And in that silence, a promise seemed to linger in the air, that the tests had begun and humanity's true measure was about to be revealed. Jed's gaze did not waver. "Whatever comes next," he said softly to Alara, "we face it together. Humans always survive, and we always adapt." Alara smiled faintly, her fear tempered by awe. "I believe you, Jed, I really do." The shimmer pulsed again, signaling the beginning of the first true interaction between humans and something beyond their understanding. And Jed knew, deep in his bones, that humanity was about to prove why they survived where others failed, through courage, ingenuity, and the stubborn refusal to yield to fear. The alien vessel hung silently above the colony, its shimmering form reflecting the red dust plains of Ardent 7 like a moving mirror. The townspeople stood frozen, eyes wide, as Jed Harron and Dr. Alara Voss watched from the ridge. The first contact had passed, but the air buzzed with anticipation. This was no longer just curiosity, it was a challenge. Alara tightened her grip on her instruments. "Jed, it's not just observing, it's testing us." Jed nodded, calm and steady. Then let's show it what humans can do, not just fearlessness but intelligence, courage, and unity. Below them, the colony stirred. The townspeople began to organize, gathering tools, checking structures, and herding livestock. Jed had always believed that when humans were tested, their true strength came out, not in panic but in action. The first test came suddenly. A sharp pulse of energy shot from the vessel, creating a series of holographic obstacles across the plains. Jagged walls of light appeared, twisting and shifting unpredictably. They blocked pathways, split the herd, and forced the humans to navigate dangerous terrain. Jed scanned the field, assessing the situation. "Alara, we need a plan. This isn't just about bravery, it's about strategy. Let's move the herd through safely." Alara nodded, her mind racing. "I can calculate the safest route using the readings from the instruments. But we need someone to lead the herd directly." Jed smiled faintly. "Then that's my job. Humans survive by leading when others hesitate." He whistled sharply, signaling the herd. The genetically engineered creatures looked at him, sensing his calm determination. Slowly they began to move, following Jed through the shifting holographic maze. Each step was careful, precise. The walls of light pulsed around them, testing their resolve. But Jed guided the herd with a mixture of instinct and skill, adjusting paths, calming panicked animals, and keeping the humans in the colony aware of each movement. Alara's calculations flashed on her portable console. "Jed, you're cutting it close, but you're right. Humans don't just react, they adapt." The townspeople cheered as the herd reached safety. The alien vessel pulsed again, its light flickering in a way that suggested approval. Jed wiped sweat from his brow and looked at Alara. "See, it's not impossible, just human." But there was no time to rest. The vessel's next pulse transformed the terrain itself. Craters opened, strange energy barriers appeared, and the ground shifted unpredictably. The aliens were now testing not only courage but ingenuity, how the humans would adapt to sudden changes, to threats they couldn't anticipate. Jed looked around. "Tools, equipment, anything we can use. We'll create bridges, clear paths, and keep everyone safe. Humans survive because we improvise." The townspeople sprang into action. Using salvaged parts from old machinery, Jed guided them to construct makeshift bridges over energy barriers. They combined mechanical knowledge with intuition, adapting to the shifting landscape. The aliens observed, pulsing in recognition as humans worked together seamlessly, turning chaos into order. Alara marveled at the scene. "Jed, look at them. They're amazing. They're not just following, they're thinking, creating, surviving." Jed's eyes were steady. "That's the point. Humanity doesn't wait for miracles. We make our own way." The vessel pulsed again, and a holographic puzzle appeared in the center of the field, a complex array of light patterns, shifting and changing faster than any human could naturally process. It was a test of perception and intelligence designed to see if humans could decode unfamiliar systems under pressure. Alara's mind raced. "Jed, this is incredible, but we can solve it. Humans are the best at pattern recognition and adaptation. We just need focus." Jed stepped forward. "Then let's focus." He gestured to the townspeople. "Everyone work together. Notice patterns, share observations, act as one. Humans survive because we cooperate." Slowly, methodically, the humans began to solve the puzzle. One person noticed a recurring rhythm. Another pointed out symmetry in the holograms. Jed coordinated their efforts, combining human intuition with logic. Piece by piece, they aligned the patterns until the holographic puzzle finally stabilized, the light dimming in acknowledgement. The alien vessel pulsed in response, brighter this time, a clear sign of recognition. Jed allowed himself a small grin. "See, not just courage. Intelligence, ingenuity, that's human." But the tests were not over. The vessel's next challenge was the most dangerous yet. A sudden storm of energy struck the plains, lightning-like arcs of power dancing unpredictably across the field. The humans had to protect the herd, their homes, and themselves while navigating the shifting hazards. Panic threatened to take hold, but Jed stood firm. "Stay calm," he shouted. "Focus. We can handle this. Humans survive because we don't panic, we adapt." The townspeople followed his lead, moving with precision, coordinating to shield the herd, reinforce structures, and create safe paths. Jed led from the front, his calm determination guiding everyone. The genetically engineered livestock followed his cues, trusting his presence, and the humans adapted to every new danger thrown at them. Alara watched, awestruck. "Jed, they're incredible. All of them. Humans are amazing when we face impossible odds." Jed nodded, still scanning the field. "That's the point. Survival isn't about hiding. It's about action, about courage, about intelligence, and about working together." The alien vessel pulsed again, its energy flaring in acknowledgement. For the first time, Jed noticed a subtle pattern in the light pulses, a rhythm that seemed almost like applause, almost like approval. The vessel had been testing humanity's courage, ingenuity, and teamwork, and they had passed. But Jed knew the final test was still coming. The aliens were patient, and patience meant observation. He turned to the townspeople. "We've proven ourselves so far, but the real test is how we handle what comes next. Humans survive because we never give up, no matter the odds." The vessel pulsed one last time, and a wave of energy washed over the ridge. Jed felt it in his chest, a challenge, an expectation. The aliens were not just testing strength or intelligence, they were testing moral courage, the ability to act for the greater good, even when personal risk was high. Alara's voice trembled. "Jed, the readings, it's showing scenarios. It wants to see how we react when others are in danger." Jed's gaze hardened, steady and unwavering. "Then we show it. Humans protect each other. That's why we survive." The townspeople understood immediately. They began coordinating in new ways, ensuring that every member of the colony, every child, every animal was safe. Energy pulses struck unexpectedly, threatening the livestock and structures, but the humans adapted, using tools, quick thinking, and courage to shield and save. Jed led from the front, guiding the humans with calm authority. The alien vessel observed closely, pulsing in rhythm with the humans' actions. For every challenge, the humans responded with intelligence, courage, and unity. Alara watched him, admiration and pride in her eyes. "Jed, humanity, we're extraordinary." Jed smiled faintly. "We always have been, that's why we survive." Hours passed and the tests continued, each one more complex than the last. Obstacles, puzzles, storms, and moral challenges were thrown at the humans, but they faced each one with determination. They adapted, they learned, they worked together, and above all, they did not falter. Finally, the alien vessel pulsed one last time, hovering silently above the plains. Its energy shimmered brighter than ever before, then receded slightly, as if acknowledging the humans' success. Jed stood on the ridge, his chest heaving but his gaze still steady. The townspeople below cheered, exhausted but exhilarated. They had survived impossible tests and in doing so had proven something vital, humanity's unique strength. Alara stepped beside Jed. They respect us, all of us, not just you," Jed nodded. "Of course. It's not just me, it's humanity. Courage, intelligence, unity. That's what makes us extraordinary. That's why we survive." The alien vessel pulsed one final time before slowly retreating into the sky, leaving a trail of shimmering light that faded into the horizon. The humans watched in awe, understanding that the tests were over for now. Jed turned to the townspeople, his voice steady. "You did it, all of you. You showed courage, intelligence, and unity. That's what makes us human, and that's why we survive." The townspeople erupted in applause and cheers, but Jed held up his hand for silence. "Remember this. This planet, this challenge, this unknown, it showed us what we are capable of. Never forget it. Humans survive by facing the impossible and rising above it." Alara placed a hand on his shoulder, smiling. Jed, you really are something else. Jed grinned faintly. Maybe, but humans are something else, and today we proved it. The red dust plains of Ardent 7 were silent again, but the memory of courage, intelligence, and unity lingered in the air. Humanity had faced a challenge unlike any other, and had not only survived, but shown their true strength. And Jed Heron, standing tall against the unknown, knew that this was only the beginning. The morning sun rose over the red plains of Ardent 7, casting long shadows across the colony. The townspeople were exhausted but alert. The alien vessel had retreated slightly after the earlier tests, but the air still thrummed with energy. Jed Heron stood on the ridge, eyes scanning the horizon as if expecting the next challenge. Alara Voss approached him, instruments in hand, though she barely needed them. The alien's presence was palpable. She could feel it in her chest like a slow heartbeat. Jed, it's almost like they're waiting for something. A final test, maybe. Jed nodded. Most likely. Humans always face the final test last. It's how we're remembered, by what we do when the stakes are highest. Below them, the townspeople prepared. Tools, machinery, and livestock were organized. Everyone moved with quiet determination. The earlier tests had taught them courage, focus, and unity. They were ready to face whatever came next. Suddenly, the alien vessel pulsed and a wave of energy swept over the plains. The air crackled and the ground trembled. Holographic forms appeared, creating a labyrinth of dangerous terrain. Fires ignited in strange patterns, energy fields shifted unpredictably, and deep fissures opened across the ground. Jed turned to the colony. This is it, the final test. Everyone, stay calm and follow my lead. Humans survive by facing danger, not fleeing it. Alara's voice shook slightly. Jed, the energy readings, it's unstable. One wrong move could be catastrophic. Jed's expression remained steady. Then we move smartly, carefully. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's action despite fear. The first challenge came immediately. A section of the colony's livestock pasture was engulfed in unstable energy fields. The herd panicked, scattering in all directions. Jed whistled sharply, and the animals froze, recognizing his calm authority. He and a group of volunteers guided them carefully through the energy hazards, using makeshift barriers and precise timing to avoid the worst of the bursts. Alara monitored the energy with her instruments. Jed, they're testing our resourcefulness and calm under pressure. Every move matters, Jed nodded. Exactly. Humans survive because we think, act, and adapt. Fear only slows us down. The townspeople followed his lead, reinforcing shelters and creating safe pathways for the livestock. Every challenge seemed more dangerous than the last, but the humans worked together, improvising with ingenuity that amazed even Jed. Then came the moral challenge. The alien vessel projected holographic images of people and livestock trapped in dangerous zones. The humans could save only some of them at a time. Panic and fear surged. Voices shouted in confusion. Jed's eyes hardened. Listen, we save who we can, yes, but we also protect everyone else. Focus. Prioritize. Plan. Humans survive not just through courage, but by acting with intelligence and moral responsibility. Volunteers quickly organized, dividing into teams. Some rescued livestock, others reinforced barriers, and a third group assisted the vulnerable townspeople. The aliens observed silently, pulsing in rhythm with human actions. Jed could feel the scrutiny, testing not only bravery but morality, decision-making, and unity. Alara whispered, awestruck, "They're impressed. They're watching every choice we make, every action." Jed kept moving, calm and decisive. Then let them watch. We'll show them what humans are capable of. The final physical test came next. A massive energy surge threatened the entire colony. Lightning-like arcs of raw power struck unpredictably, and the ground shook violently. Most humans would have frozen, paralyzed by fear. Not Jed. "Everyone hold together," he shouted. "Move as one. Humans survive because we don't scatter, we cooperate." Under his direction, the townspeople coordinated perfectly. Makeshift shields were moved into place to divert energy bursts. Livestock were guided through safe corridors. Structures were reinforced using engineering ingenuity combined with intuition. Every human acted decisively, following Jed's calm lead. The surge passed without major damage, leaving the humans exhausted but triumphant. The alien vessel pulsed again, brighter than ever, a clear signal of acknowledgement. The final test was not yet over, but humanity had demonstrated courage, intelligence, unity, and moral judgment. Jed allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction. "Alara, they're impressed. We've shown them everything humans are." Alara smiled, her eyes reflecting admiration and relief. "Yes, and more. You've led them through impossible challenges." But the alien vessel wasn't done. A final challenge emerged, one that tested both courage and ingenuity. A large fissure opened, splitting the colony's central area. Energy beams danced across it, making a simple crossing impossible. The townspeople on the far side were trapped, unable to reach safety without intervention. Jed stepped forward. "I'll cross first and set up a safe path. Then we bring everyone across. Humans survive because someone leads when others can't." Alara grabbed his arm. "Jed, it's too dangerous." Jed smiled faintly. "Danger is where humans prove themselves." He moved carefully, stepping over unstable ground, dodging energy beams, and using his tools to stabilize sections. The alien energy pulsed in response, probing his courage and precision. Step by step, he created a safe pathway, a bridge over the fissure. Once the path was stable, he signaled the townspeople to follow. One by one, humans, livestock, and supplies crossed safely, coordinated perfectly, demonstrating ingenuity, teamwork, and courage. The alien vessel pulsed rhythmically, its energy now more fluid, almost like applause. Jed stood at the far side, turning to the colony. "Everyone made it, together. That's why humans survive. Courage, intelligence, unity, and action. That's humanity." The townspeople erupted in cheers, exhausted but elated. Children clapped, adults hugged, and even the livestock seemed calmer, sensing the end of danger. Alara stepped beside Jed, her eyes shining. "Jed, we did it. Humanity, we've shown them what we are." Jed looked up at the vessel, which now hovered silently, almost serene. Its energy shimmered, pulsing slowly like a heartbeat in sync with the human's own. It was clear. The aliens recognized the human's strength, courage, and ingenuity. The vessel emitted one last wave of energy, gentle and bright. It did not harm, did not test, it simply acknowledged. Humanity had passed. Jed felt it in his chest, a wave of understanding and respect. He turned to the colony. "Remember this moment. This planet, this challenge, this unknown, it showed us who we are. Humans survive because we never give up, never surrender, and never forget to act with courage, intelligence, and unity." The townspeople cheered again, louder this time. They had faced impossible odds, survived incredible challenges, and proven that humanity's unique traits, courage, ingenuity, resourcefulness, and moral responsibility were unmatched. Alara looked at Jed with awe. "Jed, you led them through everything. You really are something else." Jed chuckled softly. "Maybe, but humans are something else, and today we proved it. Not just me, all of us." The alien vessel hovered a moment longer, then slowly ascended into the sky, leaving behind a trail of shimmering light that gradually faded. The humans watched in silence, understanding that the trials had ended. Humanity had not only survived, they had earned respect, not through weapons or technology, but through courage, intelligence, and unity. Jed turned to the townspeople. "Today we faced the impossible. We survived. We adapted. We worked together. And we proved what it means to be human. Never forget it." The colony erupted in celebration. Fires were lit, Tools were clanged in triumph, and laughter and cheers filled the air. Jed looked at Alara, then at the horizon where the vessel had vanished. "Humans always survive," he said softly, "and we always adapt. That's who we are, that's what makes us extraordinary." Alara smiled, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Yes, Jed, and now the universe knows it too." The sun climbed higher, casting golden light over Ardent 7. The red dust plains, the ridge, and the colony seemed calmer now, filled with the quiet strength of a people who had faced the unknown and risen above it. Humanity had proven its worth, not through fear, aggression, or domination, but through courage, intelligence, unity, and unwavering determination. Jed stood tall, watching over his herd and his people, feeling the pride of survival and the satisfaction of leadership. Humanity had faced the test and had triumphed. And somewhere above the horizon, the alien vessel watched silently, a faint ripple in its energy acknowledging the indomitable spirit of a species that refused to yield. For on Ardent 7, and wherever humans might go in the universe, one truth was clear. Humanity survived by facing the impossible, and humanity would always rise, no matter the odds.